What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another edition of the Full View, which will get fuller as the hour goes on. Marcel doesn't believe in time, but he will be here. Yeah, trust he will be here. There's plenty to get into. Just over 24 hours to go, actually, until the transfer window shuts close. Manchester United still expected to do a little bit more business when it comes to Manuel Ugarte. We're waiting on an announcement. Could happen whilst we're live. That's the joys of being live here when it gets to the close of the transfer window, and possibly some other business that does happen. On top of that, we've got to talk about injuries, exclusions from international squads. We'll be talking about Liverpool at the weekend as well. So there's so much to get into. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner. Big up to the panel as always. Big up to Kenny. Big up to Steph. Big up to Good Vibes John, also known by his new nickname. This is official. He's in the process of trademarking this right now. Is Korean Romano is what's happening with that. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. We're gonna make it popular. That's what it's gonna be. Spam the chat right now. Korean Romano is gonna become a thing. Here we land. Here we go. Yeah, new catchphrase on the horizon. Indeed. We've got plenty to get into. Let's begin. I mean, it's not probably the most positive note to get into actually when we start, but we've got to talk about Mason Mount, folks, because that was the news coming out earlier on today. It kind of broke on social media first, and Manchester United made it official a few minutes later, is that Mason Mount is injured once again. The Athletic were reporting from Mark Critchley that Mason Mount is set to be sidelined for 4 to 5 weeks with a hamstring injury. Of course, it came up at half-time against Brighton last weekend in the Premier League in the lunchtime kickoff. Erik ten Hag, after the game, said that it was he came off because of I don't know if he said precaution or he said he felt something. He felt something, so we didn't want him to take any risks. Well, that something was quite significant because it was a hamstring twinge that kept him out for 4 to 5 weeks. Manchester United released a statement saying, quote, Manchester United midfielder Mason Mount has suffered a minor injury setback that is due to keep him out of action for a few games. Mount himself posted a statement on social media saying, during the last game, I picked up a minor muscle issue. I've had it checked and it looks like I'll be out for a few games leading up to and during pre-season. I worked hard to get my fitness back where it needs to be, and I felt re-energized, sharp and ready. I wanted you to hear it directly from me how frustrated I am, as I expect you are too. I will do everything possible to be back in the best shape and help the team, but he will be back after the international break. Kenny, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to hearing that? Are you concerned about Mount now in terms of just, I guess, general future? Last season out, all pretty much through injury. This once again, this season, I mean, it's exactly the same, isn't it? So a whole preseason, second game in, picks up an injury, and we're not sure when he's going to come back. What are your thoughts on it all?
My thoughts are here we go again. Last year we had it with all the, it seemed as every defender at some stage was out. We're now looking at, Mason Mount has been given an opportunity to, and he's been given an excellent opportunity. He started 2 games, and to be fair, last week he played okay. I thought he was unlucky to get pulled. But, here we go. Here we go again, and it's just not good enough. It is just not good enough. You can't be playing, £60 million and £150,000 to £200,000 a week, and they're on the sick beds. Terrible. It's terrible. It's really, really poor. I just don't know what it is. I know it's a hamstring injury or whatever. I am trying to look for a positive, and the only positive I can get or I can think about is I didn't want him and Bruno to play false nines, 8 and 10. I didn't want that. I felt last week we needed a central striker. Now, what we're going to get Sunday now is if there's no Mason Mount, we have no options now because McTominay's gone. He's got to play De Zerbi at 9. He's got to play De Zerbi with Bruno at back. And I wanted that anyway, to be honest. Xerxes, yeah, sorry. I wanted him. I was getting mixed up. Right, but I wanted him to start at 9 anyway. But I didn't want it to be at the bereft of the poor lad being injured. But from a point of view with regards to the numbers, let's look at the numbers. All right, we should be getting a Guardian. We should be getting a Guardian now. But we've lost McTominay. So who's going to be our bench players? What's coming off the bench now for the midfield? I do think that I think at some stage tomorrow, I think they're going to have a good hard look at themselves and say, right, what are we going to do here? And if they've not already got, why has Amrabat not signed for anyone? was he told to wait for us or whatever and see how the situation was financially in the last couple of days? I'm just hoping as they bring Amrabat in, because at least now you can justify bringing him in. Because can we rely on
he might go
Mason
to
Mount?
Spain. I think there was some
Well,
rumours
I've
he
not
might go to
seen much about
Atletico or
it.
something like that in Spain or
Yeah,
something
I've
like
not
that.
seen much about it. And he could have gone in June to anywhere, couldn't he, really, if he was going anywhere? Because nobody else wanted him. But I would happily take Amrabat for another season, without a doubt. Because if Mason Mount's going to be in and out, and is there a real position for him? Because when we get Højlund back, Xerxes, we're going to be playing with a number 9. We're not going to be playing with 2 false 9s or an 8 and a 10. So where does he fit in the team anyway? So, no, I'm disappointed. Really disappointed.
Already a super chat straight out the gate. Crash illustration, very much a regular when it comes to the full view, and always the same super chat. Basically, he says, "Big ups, Owen, the old man, aka Kenny, Korean Romano, aka John, Steph, and where the F is Marcel? Marcel is here. He doesn't believe in time, but he does believe in showing up. So Marcel has arrived. Big up, Marcel, and big up to Crash illustration every single week. Same super chat, same joke every time. Still funny. Good vibes, John. Let's go to you. Can you get any good vibes out of this Mason Mount news? How are you feeling about it?
Honestly, I'm actually pretty disappointed and sad. Not to Mason Mount, but just the reaction as a whole. I saw the news break and I was absolutely gutted. But to see the reaction from some of the Manchester United fan base, especially with respect to how they're attacking and criticizing Mason Mount, is quite disappointing. And look, I'm somebody that now is being called somebody who's absolutely biased for the likes of Mason Mount because I got to interview him, right? Because now people say, oh, John has this biased agenda. He'll always defend Mason Mount. People need to remember, I've been doing fucking content creating for the past 11 years. My loyalties with respect to Manchester United, my love and my support for the club comes first ahead of anything and anyone else. And I want people to remember that. But Mason Mount is one of our own. He's only been here for one full season, and now he's trying to, play second season. And unfortunately, he's picked up another injury. It breaks my heart for Mace and for all of us. I get it. But to dump that frustration towards Mace, dump that frustration towards a player who has been nothing but a professional. I understand if Mace was out and he was caught on Instagram clubbing every night and showing up to training with a beer belly like mine, then I get it. But he's been nothing but an utmost professional. And to see that kind of just the vitriol and the anger towards him, particularly, I think is very sad to see.
I mean, I will play devil's advocate here because I agree with you in terms of the people take it too far, don't they? That's social media, unfortunately, nowadays. But can you understand perhaps the frustration? I mean, I myself remember saying last season, you know what, I'm willing to give someone that you've just signed a season's grace when it comes to injuries, what haven't, because that can happen. But are you not concerned now that there is a pattern forming? I said last season I thought he was one big injury away from being a flop. And this is a relatively big injury. It's the same pattern as last season. Is there not a concern, or do you not think there would be discussions within Manchester United going, actually, I tell you what, this guy might be physically breaking down at this point?
Oh, well, look, if it's, if it's one of those things where you consider him a flop and he was a bad signing for Manchester United, that's your take and that's everybody's opinion. I have nothing against that. I'm not going to sit here and say what you're saying is wrong or right and like it's wrong to say that. That's completely your opinion and there's nothing wrong with saying that. My problem is more so attacking him for saying that he's injured and like it's his fault he's injured. That's my main concern. If you're blaming a footballer for being injured when he's being professional, then I think that's unfair. Look, injuries there's a multitude of reasons for why a player can get injured, but there's certain things that are beyond your control and there's some certain things that are within your control, and if you're blaming him for saying that he was unprofessional and he's the cause of his injuries, then I understand. You know what I'm saying? But if for somebody that's been nothing but a professional for us, and then you're saying then to go and say like, oh, it's your fault that you're injury prone, I think that's harsh. That's the only problem I have with it. If you're calling him a flop and you're saying he's a bad signing for Manchester United, I'm not going to say, that you're wrong because especially that's your opinion. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about the signing as a whole. We're not talking about Mason Mount, the individual. But when people are going after Mason Mount, the individual, that's two different conversations that we're having. Do you know what I mean? And I want people to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that goes for a lot of United players, isn't it? And sometimes that's part of the problem. Once you take it personal, you actually muddy your argument. You stop talking about football, don't you, when it comes to all that? Steph, what do you think about this Mason Mount situation? Of course, I suppose the ironic thing is, for someone that missed so much time last season, people were praising his early performances, saying how important he was for energy and pressing, and how when he did come off, we lost our shape. But I suppose the counter argument to that is he hasn't even played 2 full games. And he's already injured again. What are your thoughts?
I mean, at this point, I don't even recognise Mount as a United player. And I'm not even blaming him. Like, I feel like I need to be careful now after what John said, because I don't want to look as if I'm being overly biased against him. But I just, we signed him for 55 million. He barely played. What did he barely? He had an unknown injury at the start when we just signed him. I'm looking this up right now. So he missed games missed last season. 21-6. So for the calf injury, it was 21 games he missed. With an unknown injury, it was 6 games that he missed. I don't know if that incorporates games outside the Premier League, but that's a hell of a lot of matches to miss in your first season when he was had 1 year left on his contract and we paid 55 million. It was a waste of money, essentially. I hoped for big things this season. I think us as a fan base as a whole, we never really quite knew where Mason Mount was going to fit into the team. We didn't quite get the signing. I'm generalizing for the fan base. That there's some people who might really have wanted him and knew where to put him, or wanted him in a certain position. But I just feel like the fact that he's not reliable, the fact that he's not available, does not help him. Because when he is available, we're still left wondering, well, you've been out for X amount of games. We can't really throw you on. We can't really start you. So you're either going to be subbed on or subbed off. And if that's the case, then our whole front setup would change. As in, it would normally be like false nines, like Bruno and Mount. So it's almost as if we are accommodating not only his injuries, but we're accommodating him as a football player.
By the way, it's quite tinny as well. By the way, your mic is like sounds. I thought it was very Dalek-y at the beginning. It was kind of Dalek-y at the beginning as well. So I don't know if you want to refresh or something like that. See if that'll be fixed. Marcel, talk to me. Yeah, you call him Money Mace. Is he worth the money that Man United paid for him at the moment? Because a lot of questions.
Well, firstly, big up Johnny, big up yourself, Owen, big up John. Can you guys hear me well? Yeah.
We can hear you all good.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I agree with everything that John was saying. I just want to add on top of that, basically, in the sense of it's on just your question directly as well, Owen. It's an unfortunate situation because I know a lot of the fans are going to look at it and say, "Oh, we spent that money; it's a waste of money." But if he was available and fit for that whole season, maybe we wouldn't have looked at it as a waste of money. It's just that he gets these accumulation of injuries. There's a degree of responsibility that's meant to be on him in terms of looking after yourself when you get injuries or trying to get back and be in a good condition. Because again, it's a hamstring now, I think it is, yeah, and he's going to be out for a little while. So all to do with the legs, so he's got another injury there anyway, and it's going to be another long period out. What I'm finding difficult to be able to comprehend right now is that the shape of the team, the 4-2-4 shape, I think it's very important that the way that Mason Mount plays the 10 role, because we kind of have Bruno in the false 9 playing more the 9, and then we have Mason Mount next to him but playing more the 10. The way Mason Mount plays it is really important to the shape. I think he just has a better kind of understanding with whoever the other number 9 in converted commas is going to be. The way that he presses around them or complements their movements is really important for the team and the structure and that front four, the way the front four behave. So now that he's gone out of that picture and you put Bruno in there, it becomes more of what looks like to me a 4-2-3-1 shape, Owen, and everyone else, Kenny, John, Stephanie. So it's like that to me, it just feels like we're kind of losing that 4-2-4 without Mason Mount in there. I don't feel like Bruno can implement that structure as well as Mason Mount can. I felt like he was going to be... Go on, Kenny.
No, I kind of understand where you're coming from, and then I don't understand. Because if Xerxes had been here earlier, and if Owen was fit, Mount would be on the bench. He ain't gonna. He's not taking Bruno's place. No way.
See, that's the thing, Kenny. My worry is, and I love Bruno, but my worry is we're getting to a stage now where Bruno as a 10, and we used to always kind of say it, he's all over the place and all these kind of things. And then now Ineos come into the fold and they want a bit more structure, organization, shape. There's going to be like a game model and a system that no matter which manager comes in, they're going to kind of have these kind of ways and styles of playing. Bruno as a 10 for that structure, system, shape, behavioral patterns, I feel like it's a bit erratic, or he free roams in the 10. I don't think we want a free roaming 10 now if you're playing the 4-2-4 shape. You want someone that's a bit more disciplined and is doing very deliberate things consistently and has a good partnership with your other false 9, inverted commas. Mason Mount fit. Go on.
Right, so going off what you've just said, right? If Højlund was fit, right, we know Højlund's going to probably start or whatever. In your opinion, do you believe that we would bench Fernandes and play Mount from the start, based on what you just said?
Yeah. So my thing is, Kenny, I don't think we bench it's Fernandes. I think it's Bruno. I think it's Casemiro. I think it's Casemiro that we bench. I think Bruno's an 8. He wears the number 8 on his back, Kenny. Why can you not?
So you see Mount as a 6?
No, I see Mount as the 10 still. So my shape in that midfield. And by the way, Kenny, I've been saying it for a little while as well. I don't see it as starting 11s anymore. We've got so many players at our disposal. It's a squad game, but just to fit the narrative of what you're trying to say, you're gonna have to start an 11, and you might want them to play maybe 8 games consistently. But I think going forward, we need to rotate. We play.
We're getting removed from the issue here at hand, aren't we, Marcel? It's not even a case of where can Mason Mount play. It's can Mason Mount play, because at the moment, as I mentioned, he's injured again after the second game of the season. He hasn't completed 90 minutes this season. Both games he came off. He obviously got hurt in the Brighton game. Against Fulham, he came off, 60 minutes, 65 minutes, something around that number.
Yeah.
And I think we have to keep the same energy here. You know what I mean? And this might be something people are saying you're being too, you're being too emotional here, Owen, or whatever. But I look at other players that we have criticised for their injury record, whether it be Luke Shaw, whether it be Anthony Martial, whether it be Paul Pogba, whether it be Rafael Varane. Eric Bailly. We got to keep the same energy here. In that this is a guy that Erik ten Hag himself, when he's asked about Mason Mount in press conferences, says you cannot judge him because he didn't play last season. He is not playing this season now for 5 weeks with hamstring issues. We know how fragile they can be. You can have setbacks. You can recover from it. It can go right again. It can be a problem. And I feel like with that, we have to keep the same energy. I think Ineos, looking at that, will keep the same energy. We know that Omar Barada, particularly when he looks at players, what does he say? 2 years, if you haven't done it at Man City, we got him out. I think he'd look at Mason Mount the same and say, if this guy continues to be injured this season, then he's got a massive problem come the end of the season, because we might have to look elsewhere. Because again, it's not even about, we have the discussion about where he can fit in the team, which we haven't figured out right yet. And then we're going to have the discussion about if he's actually going to be available at any point, because he might get hurt again. That's a massive problem. And he's a presser. He's a presser with energy. Remember, his main function in this team that we've seen thus far is energy. Is pressing from the front, is getting people ticking over. And what you need to have to be able to do that, you need stamina, and you need to be physically robust to be able to do that all the time. And if you've done it after 2 games, not for whole 19, you're breaking down, that is a massive red flag for me personally.
No, you're right. I'll go one further. He's gone. He will be gone. No, I can go one further than that. He'll be gone on that premise. Definitely he'll be gone. But now we're talking about, we still need to go into the future in terms of what does that look like for the shape of the team, because I feel like he's imperative to the shape of it looks like we're going back to 4-2-3-1 then. As soon as Mason Mount comes out against Brighton, you're looking like a 4-2-3-1. Bruno's kind of everywhere running around, and Xerxes sometimes will play the target man 9, and sometimes will play the half space 9. There's less structure massively. It's not a 4-2-4, it's a 4-2-3-1 it looks like. And Casemiro starts getting more tired. So Mason Mount for me in the 4-2-4 shape, Owen, what I'm saying, was just imperative to implement in it correctly. You could see it against Fulham for the minutes that he was on. And then once he comes off, it looks a bit more frail. You can see it against Brighton in the first half. That's all I'm saying. But I will go one step further than you, Owen. 100%, he's gone. He will be gone. Same with maybe a Luke Shaw if he continued to go in that trajectory. Yeah, definitely they'll be gone. And that's more problems, headache, issues for Ten Hag going forward. Because I felt like this 4-2-4 shape was something that we are going to build on season upon season, or it was always going to be fixed. But
see, I
it
don't
doesn't
think
look
so
like
with
that.
that. I don't think so with that. I feel like that 4-2-4 was Eric Ten Hag again, compensating, trying to keep his job at the end of last season, because what he was doing wasn't working, and he realized he had big games coming up, and he realized particularly after Crystal Palace, I cannot afford any more massive thumpings, otherwise I won't even make it to the FA Cup final. So I'm going to go with 4-2-4. I'm going to go with 2 false nines. I'm going to make myself a bit more difficult to beat. Did well against Arsenal, even though we lost. Beat Newcastle at home, beat Brighton away, won an FA Cup. But I don't think that was the long-term plan, because why do you have 2 strikers if that's the long-term plan to play 2 false nines? So I feel like, probably it makes the decision much easier, doesn't it? Really, this weekend he's going to go back to having a forward up front, whether he plays the same shape.
There's no choice.
Yeah,
there's no choice.
Exactly.
Who does he put in? He can't put McTominay in unless he nips over to Italy and gets him a flight back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. A couple more super chats here. For one from Red Baron says, can't believe you speak about colleague in Mount from United District like this. Yeah, big up Dylan. Although I feel like he's dyed his hair blonde to get away from the Mason Mount comparisons. Says it's a fucking disgrace. He puts a lot in UV. Ahmad says, Mount needs to go and we need to cash in on Bruno next summer while we still can. Wow, I don't think that's going to happen, Ahmad. He's just signed a new contract. And another one here says, I'll never disrespect Bruno, always available. Hey, that's what they say about availability.
Fair comment, isn't it? It's a fair
one
comment.
One of the best abilities. Just a little bit sort of breaking news whilst we're live here. Fabrizio Romano is saying that Chelsea are currently talking to Man United for Jadon Sancho in a separate deal from Victor Osimhen. Both deals are still being negotiated whilst that's going on with Osimhen. There was also something a little bit more suggesting that Jadon Sancho to Juventus. That's currently on hold now, according to Gianluca Di Marzio in Italy. Previous transfers are blocking the move. We're going to get onto this a little bit later. We might as well get onto it now. And if you haven't already, click the like button. We've already got over or close to 1,500 people watching, less than 300 likes. If you haven't already clicked the like button, let's get that like number up. John, I'll start with you. What do you make of all of this Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling stuff? It's been very interesting to see the reaction among the Manchester United fans. I think a lot of people are a bit against the Sterling one. Some people not. What do you make of it all? Could you see a scenario where that could happen, Sancho for Sterling?
I mean, I understand the logic. I understand why that might be the quote unquote like for like. I think it's more so with respect to wages. I think if I'm not mistaken, Raheem Sterling's on Chelsea. He's like 230 grand weekly. Like he's on some big wages at Chelsea as well. So I do understand from the monetary perspective. But in terms of bringing Raheem Sterling to Manchester United, I do not see how he provides anything. You know, as much as I love Marcus to bits, he is not Raheem Sterling. But Marcus has been rather underwhelming since his phenomenal season 2 seasons ago. You know, and to bring somebody like Raheem Sterling, who maybe on his day when he was popping off, then I do understand that he is a very lethal player and he gives you an end product. But when that like fizzled out, he became rather very wasteful. And to bring somebody like Raheem Sterling to play in this squad right now when we're fighting so hard for efficiency, I think it's very counterintuitive, and I don't think it adds any value to Manchester United whatsoever. If anything, maybe Man United or any of us are saying, look, if we're not going to get anything for Jadon Sancho, then let's just bring in somebody that maybe potentially could give us a couple of goals and win us a couple of points in the Prem, because at the end of the day, Raheem Sterling, when he was on it, he was a fantastic player and he did score hella goals and provide a lot of assists. But if we're working on that logic, I'd rather Manchester United not do a loan deal at all. I don't care if it's 10 mil, 20 mil. I'd rather just cash in on Jadon Sancho and to, loosen up some FFP, create more wiggle room with respect to PSR. I'd rather do that than to bring somebody like Raheem Sterling, who I think is very underwhelming, doesn't provide much with respect to efficiency whatsoever at this moment in time. When we're fighting for efficiency, that's going the other way around, respectfully.
Steph, what do you make of all of this Sancho, Sterling rumor?
I'm going to talk about Sterling first, and then I'll get on to Sancho. With regards to Sterling, I look at this as a bit of a desperate deal, or desperate potential deal. Something that's kind of, when you're at the checkout in the supermarket and you're right by that checkout aisle and you see a discounted pack of extra mints like chewing gum, and it's like, I'll just throw those in as well. That's how I feel this deal is. And I think it goes against everything that Ineos is portraying themselves as. You know, they've come in, they're like, we love a plan. We've got this whole restructuring. We kind of know what we want. We've had an internal review. We want younger players, younger, hungry, passionate players. We want all of this. And Raheem Sterling is none of that. On top of that, I just look at Raheem Sterling and I just think, you're a club whore. Like, you've just been you're just whoring around these different Premier League clubs. But honestly, I mean, come on. How are you going to go from City to Liverpool to Chelsea to United? That's like Paul Ince. That's worse than Paul Ince. That's worse than what Paul Ince did. Come on. Like, I don't.
No, well, I suppose with Chelsea, with the Chelsea one, it's not as if that he wants to leave, is it? As well, he's being told that he has to leave, otherwise he's not going to be involved in the Premier League squad.
Yeah, I get that. But then if you look at his attitude and what his entourage has said, like, if he's kicking up a stink about not being in the match day squad for the first game, so what, we're going to buy him, 29-year-old, and we're going to have to start him every game. For who? Who are we going to take off? Ahmad? Garnacho? Because Rashford's not coming off. You know that. So I just think it's no. Ideally, what I'd like to happen at this stage is we definitely do need to get rid of Sancho. I think he's potentially a problem in the dressing room, and obviously it's going to cause a headache for Ten Hag, and we don't need that in his third season. I would really like him to go. I think Jadon Sancho would suit a club outside the Premier League, as we've seen. You know, we've seen him play at Borussia Dortmund. He's great. If he can have a crack at Juventus, I think that would be the best outcome for us and the best outcome for him. But the thing is, it almost seems as if he's the puppet master and he's pulling the strings, because that deal with Juventus was, you know, working through, and now all of a sudden it's on pause because Jadon wants to go to Chelsea. So what, are we just kind of laying out the red carpet for him? He's got us by the balls, Jadon.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Marcel, what do you make of it? What do you make of the Sancho situation, the Sterling one? Do you think we're going to get a resolution to this? I mean, it's, again, only 24 hours to go, so anything would have to be pretty quickly done. How do you see it going?
Dan Ashworth's got a big challenge on his hands. I think he can, if he can get cash and Sterling and maybe another player, or maybe, you know, Sterling, another Chelsea player for Sancho. If you can get maybe Sterling plus cash, I think you might take it, and then maybe try and go in for Ivan Toney, you know, or something like that. If you can work it in a certain way that, we can make something work for us and benefit us, then I would do that. But, you know, right now I'm not able to really comprehend and a situation where Sterling for Sancho directly is a good idea. It just doesn't make any sense, you know. So I would say it has to be a player plus cash deal. And it does seem like rumors. I think Juventus would want to pay fully cash for the player. So it makes more sense.
I don't think they would. Again, that's the problem, is that Juventus don't have the money at the moment to get Jadon Sancho. Their thing is Man United want an obligation if there was going to be a loan, but Juventus don't want to do an obligation. And as the report was just sort of saying there, they have spent recently too. I think they've just brought in Kloop Miners as well. So financially, they're a bit tight. We know European clubs don't have the money that Premier League clubs do either. So it's difficult. So kind of to Steph's point, it's a difficult one, because it feels like either way, maybe United aren't going to get what they want when it comes to it. But as we've seen throughout this whole window, whenever Ineos has been backed to a corner and we think that they're not going to get what they want, eventually they do, which is going to be quite interesting either way. Kenny, what do you make of it? Would you take Raheem Sterling at Old Trafford?
I'll do the Sancho one first. I think Sancho's got to go to Italy, because I think if he goes to Juventus, whilst they've no money this season, it's a bit like the Dortmund thing, isn't it? We'll probably be paying a large percentage of his wages anyway, but he'll not be in the Premier League. He'll be out the window. We'll have forgot about him, and hopefully he has a good season, the lad, at Juventus. He can find a bit of form. Juventus have a good run in their own domestic competitions in Europe, and they found some money for next year, probably set 30 million euros or whatever. And we would snatch the rand off if anybody come in with 30 million euros. Swapping in for Sterling, it's a bit of a weird one, this, because it's not as if you look at it, if you compare it to the Amrabat as a late deal, we're short on numbers in midfield. we're loaded with wingers. We've not mentioned Anthony yet. You know, Anthony is a £70 million winger. Do you know what I mean? We've just got rid of Palestra, so it's not as if we need it's not as if we need a Sterling, unless Anthony's going late and we don't know about it, and that could happen as well. You know, somebody might be negotiating now and we've not heard, and Anthony goes late. So all of a sudden, if Anthony goes, Palestri's gone, we're lighting the wingers department. So that could be part of that discussions, what's going on with Ineos, that we might need a Raheem Sterling. As a footballer, this reminds me very much of the Michael Owen. Do you remember the Michael Owen deal? Where Michael Owen, you know, when he speaks on TV, he says, the Liverpool fans don't love me anymore. And Stephen Gerrard always says, well, you shouldn't have gone to play for Man United. Well, it seems as nobody loves Raheem Sterling, because I won't use the terminology Steph used, but the lad's been about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The lad's been about to all the big clubs or whatever. So he's only 28, 29. So he's got it in him. He has got the ability in him. But is he going to be happy sitting on the bench? Because he ain't going to get in front of Garnacho. He's not going to get in front of Ahmad. There's no chance in front of Rashford. No chance. Do you know what I mean? Prime George Best wouldn't get in front of Rashford at the moment, the way Eric Ten Hag thinks about him. Do you know what I mean? So no, I just think that, no, it's a real contradiction of everything that we thought as fans we were trying to achieve. If you look at Euro, Xerxes or whatever, the young men, 19, 18, the young lad with Kono, the lad with signed for £1 million, the young lad we're bringing in from Arsenal. These are all young men. They're all young men, 19 to 23 years of age. And that's what we've been asking. All of a sudden, we're going back 5 years. This is another Michael Owen signing. Bring Michael Owen in when he's
Who did you say was with the cornrows? Did you say cornrows?
I think you meant Kone. Kone was another Kenny. It's like deserving again.
Just testing you. There's nothing wrong with your hearing. Your microphone might be short, but your earrings are.
Couple of super chats here from Tox. Says Sterling's run like he shat him on himself. Please no, that's nice analogy. Ahmad says, would you rather Anthony being subbed on or Sterling? Basically saying it's better than some of what we got. And Joe Fleming says, incredible, nobody in the whole world wants Jadon Sancho. Now I'm going to try something here, and now this is going to be interesting, a bit of a schedule of what we come coming up, because we're halfway through the show. We've got over 1,500 people watching, and with everything going on tomorrow, you have to know the schedule. So hopefully I can do this. There you go. The Trinity podcast is going to be early tomorrow. It's going to be live. It's going to be 8 a.m. Then we're going to have the Europa League draw, 12 o'clock, midday, a bit like the Champions League one. Press conference is coming up tomorrow as well. That's going to be at 2 p.m. And also we're going to have deadline day coming up at 9 o'clock in the evening. It's a bit of a UV tradition to do the 2 hours until get to 11 p.m. So that's the schedule for tomorrow. It's going to be a busy one. Yeah. Got a long day ahead. But
graphics and all. God, who put that together? Damn, give him a raise.
It is Just Josh Media Graphics Guru Visual Ninja is exactly who put those together. Yeah. And I wasn't sure how it was going to work out in StreamYard, but it worked out as well as it can. So yes, those are the times for tomorrow. So mark your calendar, set your alarms. It's going to be an early start tomorrow indeed. And be sure to click the like button. Right. So we've spoken about, obviously, Mason Mount. We've spoken about the stuff with Raheem Sterling and Jadon Sancho. I want to talk about Marcus Rashford. Since we're talking about Raheem Sterling and him coming in, Kenny mentioned about, George Best couldn't get ahead of him with the way Eric Ten Hag feels about him. He was substituted last weekend. It must be said. Everyone was quite surprised. I think it's because Ahmad just scored. So Ten Hag didn't have a choice. But interestingly, today, the England squad was announced and Marcus Rashford once again was not included in it. The Man United representation in the England squad was Harry Maguire and Kobbie Mainoo. Obviously, no Luke Shaw because he's injured from the last time he played for England. But Marcus Rashford doesn't make it. But not so much an England discussion, more so a Manchester United discussion. Marcel, I'll start with you. It's only 2 games into the season, but still left a lot to be desired about Marcus Rashford. There are concerns that the form is carrying on from last season. It feels like he's getting further and further away from the England squad. Do Manchester United have a bit of a problem on their hands when it comes to that? Does Eric Ten Hag have a bit of a problem on his hands when it comes to Marcus Rashford?
Yep, it could get him sacked. it could get Eric Ten Hag sacked, this conundrum, because you could have maybe sold him for 70 million, this summer, or 60 million. But if he has another one of those seasons again, you only get 40 million at the end of this window, at the end of next, at the end of the season. So he has to have that purple patch again, because he doesn't even produce for the scale of a whole season, the 9 months. It's in a spurt of 3 months, 4-month period where he just goes, he finds the confidence again, and he goes to that elite level. So we're in a difficult situation. He believes in playing players out of form. I understand that. I agree with that to a degree. And if you get Rashford firing, you've got a top player there that's going to be very direct. That's going to help with how we're trying to play. But I'm really worried. I'm really worried about this situation, because Ten Hag has to be as honest as he was in the Brighton game. As soon as Rashford's having a poor game, you have to get him off. I think just have to do that as quickly as possible. But I agree with Kenny. He just seems like he's got the wool over his eyes. That 30-goal season, Ten Hag just thinks, okay, well, that surely can be replicated. Rashi even believes that, most really to agree, could be hit and go past that. But let's see. I still think he can get 25 this season. If he really puts his mind to it, I still really think he could hit 25 goals this season. I genuinely believe that. So, but I'm really on the fence with it. I don't know. I wouldn't be upset wholeheartedly if he was sold, because I can understand the premise of that. Go and get me a way more productive winger that looks like they want to play football for the club. That just looks like they actually want to play. He doesn't even look like at times like he wants to play. I don't think it's a physical thing. I've spoken to fans, and a lot of people say, the pace is gone. It looks like his body's shot. All the times he was playing injured. I don't think it's that. I just think mentally he needs something fresh. Mentally, the pressure's really, really difficult. And to be honest with you, if you come out the other end of this, you most probably get a top, more robust mentally footballer, strong, and that's able to deal with the difficult times. But it's been 2 seasons now. How much longer does this carry on for?
Marcel,
Steph, what do you mean?
Sorry, Owen, to cut you off. I just wanted to say you're not going to get more of a strong, robust, like mentally strong, robust footballer at the age, what is he going to be, 27 in October? I think he's made his bed and he's going to line it. I'm not saying that people can't change, but if we're going off the history of what's come out in the press about his how he likes the softly approach, the managerial approach, like he loved the Ollie approach, and how he was really taken aback in the training when was it Steve McLaren, when he was like, oh no, you have to score the winner, and he's like, oh, he went to the board and said, oh, I feel all of this pressure. I mean, you're a footballer, for God's sake. Of course, you're a professional athlete. Surely you understand what pressure means. I just don't think that we've tried everything. I'm not talking as fans. I'm saying the manager. He's tried everything. Different managers have softly approach. Take him off. Leave him out for a game. Punish him for leave him on the bench for a game. Bring him on. It just, none of it works. I honestly think that he's done at United, and that he needs to go to I wouldn't like him to go to another Premier League club. I'm of that age and of that era when that really didn't happen as much as it does nowadays, when players get sold to different rivals, no matter if they're playing well or not. I would like to see him in another league, probably in the French league. But there's no way, Marcel, there is absolutely no way we are getting 60, 70 million for him off the back of what, last season? Or is he still living off the glory days of the 2 seasons ago? Because it doesn't work like that. Football doesn't work like that. And we're crazy to think that we could sell him for that amount of money. I wish we could, but we can't. We can't.
Marcel?
Yeah, so I think in terms of what Rashford is, the brand, I think 70 million you could have done this summer, if I'm honest. In terms of what you're saying, in terms of where is he at mentally, or you think he's shot in terms of this is who he is. I think footballers, especially forwards and that, their prime comes up in 2 years. He hasn't hit his prime. He hasn't matured as a man yet. He hasn't matured to the game yet. Yes, he's been playing for many a year. He's been playing at a very young age. So, one could say maybe he's found his best years, 25, 26, 27, and he played under a lot of injuries. But, and I don't think his body's like Rooney's, where he started to decline quite early. But I think Rashi could still, his prime for me, 28, 29, 30 for me. So once he gets past that, okay, it's difficult. Yes, the whole world wants me to perform. You know, there's 1.2 billion Manchester United fans on the planet, and there's like 8 billion people on the earth. So 1 in 8, 1 in 7 are expecting something. Yes, okay, but once he gets past that kind of childish mentality, for want of a better word, and he really hones in. I just seen the Ronaldo talking about pressure. Ronaldo's telling me pressure's in the wars. You know, that's where pressure is. This is, I've got a job to do. I've got to perform. So once he matures a little bit to the game in that sense, for me, you might get a killer Rashford, like what Anana was saying, my killer. So you might get that. But, and then again, that's why I'm saying I'm a bit on the fence with it. I sympathize with what you're saying. This is depression, Rashford. I've been saying it for a couple seasons now. Even under Ole, there was a bit of this as well, where he just looks like he doesn't want to play for the football club. And it might even be a personal thing of Man United. But then again, on top of that, Stephanie, he comes out and gives us an interview or a piece, or like a magazine piece or whatever it was on Twitter, saying, no, I love the club and da-da-da. And then you just play like rubbish every week. I just don't get what it's a mental. It's mental. It's something mentally is not right. And like you're saying, managers everybody's been trying to do this, do that, do the next and it's not working. It comes from oneself. That's why he's doing the celebration. The celebration is telling you what he's suffering with. It comes from oneself. You know, we all thought it was something to do with the missus. And once the missus was back, he was being productive at one stage when she came back. So, but it's mental, Steph. And once he gets that puzzle all together, he will start firing again. I genuinely believe that. Even with that, all of that being said, I still think he hits 25 because he's just that type of footballer. Even with all that being said, I still think he could hit 25. And not maybe all Prem, Kenny, because I know your eyes are bulging there. But throughout the course of 60 games, I still think he could hit 25.
Your eyes are bulging, Kenny. What do you think about what Marcel's saying?
He won't see 25 games, let alone 60 games. You know, I honestly believe, I think last year we all said if Eric Ten Hag isn't careful, he's going to fall on his sword with two players. And that was McTominay and Rashford, right? We knew he didn't want McTominay. And over a period of time towards the middle to the end of the season, then McTominay played less and less. He only played when he had to play him, when he was struggling with, you know, he needed to put something, he was putting Casemiro, a central defender or whatever. But in Rashford's case, Rashford I could not believe last year how Rashford. I honestly believe that that Marcus Rashford must go around Eric Ten Hag's for his tea at night, and is really friendly with the family and everything. It's part of the family or whatever, because the relationship it's not professional. The relationship, because if my job's on the line and I'm the manager of Man United and I can see and I can hear and it's coming from everywhere. It's coming from fans. It's coming from pundits. It's probably coming from in the dressing room as well. Marcus Rashford isn't doing it for whatever reason, whether it's mental, physical. He's just not doing it. And if you're a professional footballer and you play for Manchester United, you have to do it. And I draw a comparison with Grealish. Grealish at Man City, both him and Rashford were first choice for England. Do you know what I mean? They were really, really good and they were on fire or whatever. All of a sudden, young Doku comes in. Pooh, Grealish is on the bench and looking to get a game in future.
He's in the English squad, by the way, Jack Grealish, which is mad.
Which is mad. But Rashford is as far away from the England squad as what I am. Do you know what I mean? Because
Kenny, honestly, you're close, Kenny. Come on, don't put yourself down.
I thought it was a little bit closer than him, to be honest. But no, so I just don't get it. And this the point I want to make now is about, we love Garnacho. And Garnacho is an impact player. I've always said he's an impact player. He is better off coming off the bench. But for the last two games, he should have started. Because Marcus Rashford in close season or whatever, Garnacho definitely should be starting. And the vast majority of fans would say the same. There's no way is Hamad not starting, because everybody knows how well Hamad's playing. We also know what Garnacho is, but we also know what Rashford is. And he's very, very poor. I have to be honest. This weekend, potentially, Eric Ten Hag could lose two of his first three games very, very easily. The FA Cup last year, we was all there. We all said at the end of the FA Cup, you can't sack him, give him another year, He deserves it. We've beat City. We had the worst season ever in our history, probably. We broke every record that we shouldn't have been breaking, goals conceded, shots conceded, or whatever. And he picked that paper over the cracks, believe me. Because if we had to beat Man City, he would have been gone now, I think. I genuinely believe that. But if he isn't careful, this weekend, it's an international break coming up. There's an international break coming up. And the press love a story about Man United in the international break because there's nothing else to write. And if we don't perform this weekend, then Eric Ten Hag could quite easily be in trouble. And if he continues to stir up Marcus Rashford, then fans, I think, will let him know. Then fans, the own fans will let him know. Because it's not Rashford's fault. The lad's asked to play, he plays. It's the person that puts him there. And the person that puts him there is Ten Hag. Now, in some positions, let's look at it from the back four. He's had no options but to play the people that he's played in the positions that they played. But he's got options with that wing because we know younger Garnacho has been a fire. He's been a fire. So why is Rashford starting over Garnacho? If he's not careful, he will fall on his sword. Definitely. He's got to make changes with regards to Rashford. He's got to do it.
John, what do you make of Rashford? I mean, I think probably the consensus across the panel would be that he's going to start at the weekend, but not in the England squad. What do you make of him at the moment? Can he turn it around? Do you have faith like Marcel is going to get, 25 goals a season, all comps?
If Rashford had like the press resistance of Marcel, Marcus Rashford is world class. Marcel is getting rushed in the comments week in, week out, and he doesn't even flinch. If Marcus Rashford learned from Marcel, Marcus Rashford is scoring 45 goals. Let's be real. You know what I mean? No, but jokes aside, with respect to Marcus, I was actually sad to see him play against Brighton. There was that moment where he looked like the difference between Marcus last season and this season is that this season he actually looks like he's showing a lot more effort, and obviously he's showing effort last season as well. But it definitely looks a little bit more with a bit more impetus behind every single touch, his decision making. But there were still elements that shocked me. Like for instance, when he was there was a moment where I can't remember who he went against, but there was an opportunity where he received the ball on the run and he could have just broken, like just first touch, just broke down the flank and just sprinted. There was like a green land in front of him. He could have just taken over. You know what I mean? He could have just ran with the ball and found himself isolated 1v1. He could have created that. But instead, he took first touch, very progressive, went forward, and then he used his left foot and he took a touch back and he cut the ball. So the forward momentum for Manchester United players were all going forward, and all of a sudden he cut back. So everybody was like, what the hell? And then Bruno, who was making this sort of diagonal run, and he's trying to make this run in between the channels, because Marcus shifted and he pivoted and he held himself back. Bruno had to continue the run, and then Marcus saw that late, so he fed him the ball, but the ball was already out of play, and then it became completely useless. And those are the things that still shocks me, because those decisions tell me that Marcus is still having a difficult time with respect to pressure. And this season, he cannot, similarly to Eric Ten Hag, this season he cannot afford that kind of, pressure almost overwhelming him. As much as we want Rashid to succeed, as much as we want Rashid to do well, and don't get me wrong, I still want Marcus Rashford to do well for United. He's one of our own, but I just don't think he'll be able to go through this season similarly to last season if he continues to show these kinds of things. If he exhibits behaviors where he's questioning himself, second guessing himself, that his job as a left winger is to break. One of his greatest strengths has been pace. If he's not going to take the player on and just take the touch and go all the way down, then of course he's going to. Then you're thinking, what's he doing? You know what I mean? And that's the thing that scares. Oh my God! I think I just pressured. I think I just bored Kenny off the shoulder. No, but that's my point. That's my point. I think as much as it is as much as we want to support him, if he doesn't, fix these things up, I do fear for him.
A couple of super chats here. Red Baron says pressure is for tires, Marcel. Eminem says Rashi has always taken 4 to 5 games to hit form when the environment is right. Are we not jumping to conclusions? We've not had a successful season where Rashford has not contributed yet. Relax. I would push back on that, Eminem, because I think the reason that this big discussion happens about Marcus Rashford is when you do look at actually, the last 4 seasons, when you want to look at Marcus Rashford, Ollie's last season, Ranić's time, it was really, really bad, really bad. Arguing with fans outside Old Trafford. And I actually remember, to your point there, all the way through that preseason, Ten Hag's first preseason, it actually took him a while to get going. He looked nervous, he looked shaky, and then he kind of progressed into the season that he had. It wasn't a full season because he trailed off at the end of it. Last season, we had hoped that he was going to hit. It didn't hit. This season, it's only 2 games, so the season hasn't been written. His future hasn't been written yet, so we'll have to wait and see. But I just feel like he's a senior player now. He's one of the most experienced players in that team in terms of Manchester United. He should be, a leader, and he should be contributing. And as I mentioned earlier on, I think the only reason he got taken off, I think, last weekend is because Ahmad just scored just before Ten Hag was going to make that sub. Otherwise, I think it would have been Ahmad that came off. And not that would have been really, really harsh, because I don't think Ahmad was playing, great anyway in that game. But my hope is this season, and I mentioned this a few times, that I just hope that Erik ten Hag, and it's kind of to Kenny's point, if Rashford doesn't get going, let's say after it, the 4 or 5 games, my hope is that he's just not as stubborn and he's not as unwilling. Because I think Marcel mentioned it earlier. I think because of that season he had, Ten Hag is very fixated on, if we can just get that back, we'll be really, really good. Because he hinted at that last season. He said, well, the season before we had like 30 extra goals. And, if we added to that 30 extra goals, we should be doing really well. So I think he does expect that of Marcus Rashford each season. But whether or not he can produce that, I don't know. A couple more super chats here. Devils Reds for Life is the latest member of the UV Members Club. Welcome to you. Alpha says, we're the only top team that refused to bench an underperforming player because of sentimentality. Maybe he plays because of something in his contract. And Brandon says, high time we realize that Rashi is mid. John,
I think Owen, just to speak on that part, we saw last season where Garnacho started a number of games. Everybody was crying out for Garnacho to start because, he started quite a number of games, right? But there were a lot of the people, like, I don't know if we have short-term memory, but people need to remember that there were many of those games. Alejandro Garnacho didn't really look like he was impactful off the rip from starting, right? He clearly is much more of an impactful player. I think, Kenny, you mentioned it before. He's much more an influential player coming off the bench. He's a super sub at this moment in time. I want Alejandro Garnacho to be, I want this year to be the year where he forces the hand on Erik ten Hag to say, look, I can impact this game from minute 1 to minute 90 whenever you put me on, whether it's a starter or a sub. You give me that trust. And I want Garnacho to win that trust and force the hand on Erik ten Hag. But at this moment in time, maybe Erik ten Hag just doesn't think he can be as impactful starting the game, which is why you've almost seen Marcus Rashford start, kind of wear down the opposition almost, and then Garnacho come on and sort of deliver the finishing blow. I want Garnacho to improve to a point where he just completely checkmates Erik ten Hag into forcing him to play and to start, right? Because competition is what we want to see. If we want to see competitive players, we want to see Garnacho, we want to see Ahmad, we want to see Rashi, all these players competing for these spots. At the end of the day, Marcus, he might be starting at this moment because maybe Erik ten Hag just doesn't have that level of, intensity from some of his younger players at this moment with respect to starting, because that's why you've seen players like McTominay get selected. That's why you've seen players like, Marcus Rashford get selected week in, week out. At the end of the day, it might just be a tactical selection type of thing. And I'm not saying that Rashford is bad or good. It's just, I want Garnacho to be that player. And for now, he might not be, but I hope this is the year. If he does, then this is the year where he takes over that left wing role for his on a permanent basis.
John, could I just ask you?
Yes.
The way I look at it, I'm taking everything. I agree with everything what you just said, but the way I look at it, I think with Garnacho, it's probably his mental status is about I can come on and impact. I can come on and impact. So what about I would be looking at if Rashford had a similar mental, was as mentally stable as the lad, right? Wouldn't you not think it better if Garnacho started? He brought down, he did what you were saying, and then brought Rashford on for the last half hour. Now, that's the way I would look at it as a manager. I think, right, that's not working. Garnacho plays okay, but that first 60 minutes or whatever, Marcus should have no impact. I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to start Garnacho, but at some stage you will come on and I expect the same impact from yourself. I think where it is, though, I don't know if Rashford is mentally stable enough to be able to sit on the bench. Are you with me? And just sit there and think, why am I not playing? Why am I not playing? Garnacho does it because he's got to do it because he's a young lad that's come into a team that was you know, it came in from a very young age. He was given the opportunity from the bench, not as a starter, from the bench, where Marcus Rashford had suddenly become the first name on the team sheet. And it would appear that no matter how good or bad he plays, he always plays. So mentally, he's thinking that he's a starter. He's a starter. He's not seen it how we see it. I just wish that there would be some change and flip it. Start Garnacho or bring Rashford on later. I don't think that Rashford has that, I don't know, that mentality to be able to do it like Garnacho does. But that's just my thought.
Sorry, Steph, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to say one thing really quickly. I think the most worrying thing for me is with Rashford, you know, wanting to play on the left and being on the left, is the fact that we don't have a left back, or we don't have an out and out. You know, like Dallo can play there, Mascherano can play there, but we don't have Luke Shaw. We don't have Malacia. And I remember vividly the fans like gunning for Eric Ten Hag last season, saying, why do you keep starting Rashford? He's had a poor season. And Eric Ten Hag's reasoning and excuse was, oh, well, you know, Rashford plays better with Luke Shaw, is essentially what Eric Ten Hag said in a post-match press conference last season. So if we know that Luke Shaw is injured or however long he's going to be out for, are we still expecting, with that kind of thought process, are we expecting that Rashford's going to be improved this season without Luke Shaw? Because I don't think so. I feel like we talk about Rashford or the press, the media talk about Rashford as this great player, you know, like not a GOAT status maybe, but like an influential player. You're only an influential player when you can influence the team on the pitch and make them perform better. But it's the opposite with Rashford. Rashford relies on other players to make his game better. He's not influential. He's not a top player. I see people saying he's mid at best. I mean, I think that's being polite, if I'm honest with you. He's gone. He's finished.
It's interesting with the Luke Shaw argument, isn't it, as well? I think because when it does come to that I would agree with it in parts, but I would also say I don't know how Luke Shaw stops Marcus Rashford scoring, let's say, those 2 goals against Man City in the Community Shield, or opportunities he's had in other games. I agree maybe in terms of overall play, you know what I mean? The overlap. I do think the fact that a lack of a natural left back, I've been crying out for it all summer, that Manchester United desperately need that. But I don't know if that lets him off the hook slightly. A couple of super chats here, and I do want to talk about the game at the weekend as well, and we're rapidly running out of time. Red Baron says, what word is spelled incorrectly in the dictionary? Thinks he's got us. It's incorrectly. Let's talk about Liverpool on Sunday. Me and Kenny were talking prior to we started here, saying about how we were feeling. I wouldn't say the word's optimistic, but maybe not gloom-trodden as maybe some others may be. Marcel, I'll start with you, because you do have some explaining to do. You said we weren't going to lose any of our first 5 or 6 games. We lost our second. It's up there with your prediction last season that we won't lose a game at Old Trafford. 2 years in a row, not great. How are you feeling going into Sunday? You still your optimistic self?
Yes, it's at Old Trafford, so anything can happen at Old Trafford. Just on that though, we nearly did win against Brighton, guys. I mean, 2 offside goals. You know, they just they had their one.
What about the horrendous defending? What about the horrendous game management? Horrendous.
I don't think you know.
We should have been.
I don't think Paddy Power's going out on bets because we nearly won the game. By the way,
yeah,
you nearly won.
I know. It's hopeful and it's wishful, Owen. I know, and the poor defending is a character of how we was like last season as well, Kenny. Just towards the end, it's like we're just at 6s and 7s.
Management. Get out to do with a draw. If we'd have got a draw last week, we'd have had 4 points. We'd have been unbeaten, and we'd have been going to this game thinking we could have 7 points from our first 3 games. No, and we could have done. And I'm not saying you can't say we could have easily got a draw, but we could. A little bit of game management instead of going gun-ho, trying to win games, and then when we're defending our own line, we're not even set up properly. Terrible. Absolutely terrible game management. That awful.
I'm stuck here. I'm stuck, Kenny, because I understand what you're saying, but against the top teams, I would have that kind of attitude, mentality. Against a team that you should be in, like Brighton, you throw in you try and go and win that football match for us, and still and take 3 points out of.
You don't. but you don't do it at all cost. And you manage the game, and you go. If we'd have come out of there with a draw, we'd have been happy as fans. We'd have accepted it because it's Brighton. Brighton, when was the last time we turned Brighton over? Don't say Brighton are a top team. I'm
End
not
of
saying
last
they're
season.
a top team. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, over a period of a few years, Brighton's been a tough game for
They're a
United.
bogey team. Yeah, they are.
Been a tough game. If we'd have got a draw on 4 points, I think we, as a fan base, we said, great. We're unbeaten. We're playing Liverpool next week, and we can beat them with 7 points. No, we don't win at weekend. And forget the draw. Forget the draw. We have to win at the weekend, I think, because everybody else in that top 6 seems to be flying from what I can see. Even City that start very poorly have started very well. Arsenal, and I thought Arsenal were even pretty poor against Villa. Watkins missed 2 absolute screamers, but they came away with the points. Game management. They came away with the points. We're not doing it.
Yeah, I understand. I really do. I just feel like I can't criticize Ten Hag for that last goal and the manner of in which it happens. His ability to go gun ho, the way that he's throwing on positive and risking the midfield a little bit with his substitutions, created our Garnacho goal. It created our moment. That just changing the team. He could have stayed with Mason Mount on to infinity. But he decided, you know what, I'm going to change this. I'm going to try and add more players. When the situation was getting a bit dire, I'm going to add more forward players, grab us a goal. He wants to win these games against the lesser teams. I think that mentality you've got to take into the other games of teams of that ilk. Against Liverpool, funny enough, I would take a draw.
You're away from home. Situations. You're away from home, right? It's 95 minutes on the clock, and you're defending a free kick. That is not gun-ho. That is poor defence. That is poor defence. There were 2 players on the back post. I'm not blaming Delo alone, because where was Martinez as well? Because there was 2 players on that back post.
And Casemiro ran out, didn't he?
Yeah, it wasn't Delo or Martinez. It was Delo. It was De Ligt and Scott McTominay at the back post. But Casemiro's run off, like Owen saying, and Anthony's not defended. It's not a free kick. It's a corner.
Where does your left back defend?
He's standing in front of the free. He's standing in front of the fella that crosses the ball.
If there was 2 players on that side of the pitch with an open goal in front of them, you can only blame that be it a left back or a right back. That's where you should be defending. 95th minute.
Yeah, I can't. My point is, I can't blame Ten Hag for that. I'm blaming that.
I'm blaming game management. I'm blaming the players on the field. I'm blaming your captain. I'm blaming who's doing the organisation here. Who's allowing Delo to move up? Who's allowing Martinez to step out? That's what you've got a captain for.
Yeah.
Terrible game management.
With you with all of that. But the mentality of you're against a lesser team here. We go and chase the game to get goals for this football club. I think it was the right idea. But the players implementing that, and they're just too agitated for it. Anthony's made a half block. It goes back to the exact same player that he blocks the ball off from, and he ends up crossing the ball to Pedro at the back post. He's so eager. He's done half a job. He hasn't stopped him from delivering the cross or breaking through the first time. It then comes out of the box, goes back to that same fella, and then he crosses it into the back post. So he's done half a job, and he's running out the box.
I think you're being too kind. I think you're being too kind to our defenders. I think you're being too kind. Poor, terrible defending. 95.
That's a soundbite right there. Write that one down. Poor,
I think you're missing my point. I think you're missing my point. I'm not saying that it's not bad defending. It's shocking defending. I'm more just talking about the Ten Hag element of what he was trying to do in that game. But anyway, against Liverpool, I think against Liverpool, I think it's we have to go and try and win this. But if you get to that kind of stage where it's 95 minutes, 90 minutes, I think you do have to shut up shop against them. I think they're capable of breaking down our counter-attack. I think it might be counter-attack. I wonder. I'm worried about how we're even going to play in this game. That 4-2-4 is not going to implement the way that it's not going to be 4-2-4 in, because you're going to have 2 different types of personnel in that position. That's going to make it completely different, in my opinion. So, but I would like to hope that we can get a result, whether it's a win or a draw.
Win or a draw for Marcel. John, how are you feeling about Sunday?
Look, against Brighton, United was very poor. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. But we need to understand.
Where's my Kenny noise? I got to go to my Kenny page.
Poor. poor, and I mean poor.
There you go.
Incredible.
Yeah.
No, look, I think with respect to that second goal that we conceded, it was clearly just mismanagement. I think Kenny was spot on. That's game management from the players on the pitch. And just to kind of just speak on that, I think it takes time. You know, Matthias de Ligt came on, and there was just not the organization. I didn't really see many people communicating. And it was a second phase of play. It wasn't the immediate cross that caused it. It was just we got jumbled up, and then we just looked like a scrambled egg literally in that moment, and we conceded. But that game against Brighton, Erik ten Hag went for it. If we won that somehow, then he's given this plaudits for going for it and trying to build up momentum and confidence going into the Liverpool game. But he lost that, and he has to live and die by the sword, and he has to live and die by the actions that he takes. Whose ever fault it was, at the end of the day, the buck stops with the manager, and he didn't get the result against Brighton. Against this Liverpool game, now he has to walk into it with a very different kind of approach, pragmatic or not. He just has to think about getting a result differently. Now, if he's going to sit back and try to be, absorbing the pressure and going on a Marcel thing, then obviously it's not going to work out. This squad has no Marcels, so we need to go with a different kind of approach, and they need to really take the game by the scruff of the neck, which is why I actually think that, surprisingly, I am more confident that Ten Hag can get a result against Liverpool. As odd as it sounds, over the years, I've realized that it's more about vibes than anything. Because last season we think we're going to smash him, and we get smashed. We're going to smash him, and then we get smashed. We're going to get smashed, and then we end up smashing him. Like, it's just like I flew to London on the premise that Manchester United, despite finishing 8th, was going to beat Manchester City in the FA Cup final. And we won. There's no logic in this crap. It's honestly all down to vibes. I lost my voice. I hemorrhaged my vocal fold. I was sweating balls standing next to Flex. It was just some madness. But you know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I feel like there is that element where Manchester United, if we start with Xerxes, if we start with De Ligt, I think there is that element that we can carry that confidence and beat Liverpool. I oddly feel confident.
John oddly feels confident. Steph, how are you feeling?
I'll make it quick because I know we're going over a bit, but I'm confident that we'll win. I think it'll be a 2-1 or a 3-2. I think there's goals in it. But I'm, in the same breath, I'm slightly worried about who's going to be up against Mo Salah if Mo Salah's starting. Because, again, going back to our left-back situation, like, are we putting Dallo there? Is Mazraoui going to play there? Me, personally, I prefer to put Mazraoui up against Salah and keep the right back. But that's what I'm going to be looking at. That's my main concern. But I think, look, Arne Slot has, he's new. He's got a new team. They've just signed Chiesa. Oh, of course, he probably won't be playing on Sunday. But they've got a lot of the same players as last year. And I just don't think that, I think now is the time, the third game of the season before the international break. I don't think Liverpool are like all guns blazing. I don't think they're geared up like to the max right now. I think this is our opportunity. So yeah, I would say either a 2-1 or a 3-2 win. I can't leave the show though, Owen, without just paying homage to the Scott McTominay deal earlier that happened earlier this week. Now, to those of you who don't know, I'm not his biggest fan. And when I found out that he was leaving, I literally did a dance. I went to Aldi and bought Prosecco. I bought 2 Proseccos and I'm like, you guys think I'm lying. You guys think I'm lying. My housemates are like, Steph, you're too extra. Like, honestly, I was dancing around my living room. I'm so happy. Oh, I hope he does well. That's the signing of the summer, that is. Jog on me.
Signing of the summer. And finally, Kenny, how are you feeling? I mean, we were saying before we started that it's must win.
I said before the stream started, I'm positive from the point of view that I've watched Liverpool very closely the last 2 games, and the first hour of the game I was not impressed at all. They came 2 in the second half, and more Salah is on fire, but they're starting very, very slowly. So I'm really, really confident that if we take the game to them, then I think we will do them. And I think we'll do them 2-0. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give Marcus Rashford his first goal. He only needs 24 now. So then we can all come back at the end of the year and Marcel can say. So I'm going to give him his first goal just for Marcel's sake. But we're going to win 2-0.
2-0. You know what? I'm with you, Kenny. I'm actually, I would say optimistic, but I'm more positive than I think maybe others might be, because I just think that Man United, Liverpool, Old Trafford, it's quite one-off anyway. Last season, we were rubbish in the league, and they didn't beat us in the league. We drew at their place. They drew at our place. Should have won that game. We were unlucky with a late penalty. Beat them in the FA Cup too. And I'm with you. I think with the Arne Slot stuff, they had good games to start the season. Ipswich away, I know, is a bit of a banana skin game, but they should beat Ipswich away. And at home, Brentford at home, they should win that game too, and they did. But this will be the big test. And I did see stuff in pre-season in that game when we played them that actually we could have been 2 or 3-0 up. No, it's not going to be exactly the same, but I think with the way that we've played the last couple of games and a bit of the negativity, I think the atmosphere will be up anyway. I think the players and the manager will be energized, and it would just be good, wouldn't it? It would just be good just to go into that international break being like, you know what, that Brighton game was what it was, but we got 2 wins, we beat the rivals, and then we got 2 weeks to kind of just hope that everyone comes back off the international break not injured, and all of our transfer business is done, and then look forward to the rest of the season. So I'm going to go over win as well. I'm going to go 2-0 as well. I'm with you there, Kenny. A couple of super chats here, and then we'll wrap things up. Where are we at? Eminem says, makes me worried our attack setup is poor. Has been since 22-23. Even Chelsea are much more fluid in the final third. Liverpool game may expose it further. It may, or we may win the game and actually go, oh, maybe we were too harsh. We shall see. But just a reminder as well, one more time for the schedule for tomorrow. It's a busy day. Tomorrow for United View. The Trinity podcast going to be live 8 a.m. Me and KG the comedian. Europa League draw is going to be at midday, following the Champions League format we saw earlier on. Press conference going to be around 2. Hopefully Eric Ten Hag's not late. And then we're going to have a deadline day stream from 9 all the way to 11 when the window shuts. So be sure to join us then for all of that. Big up to the panel. Big up to Good Vibes John. Big up to Steph. Big up to Kenny. Big up to Marcel. And fingers crossed for not only signings, but also a victory at the weekend. Right here. Peace.